Alright, Improvisation Center is back again with the Monte. Yep, 84 Monte Carlo. This thing hadn't gotten much fanfare as of lately, but that's about to change, because it's about time this thing gets back on the road again. But as the title states, the first thing we're going to do to this is change the headlights out. And for those of you that know about any old cars, these things use 5x7 square, rectangular, whatever, sealed beam headlights. And you already know the configuration is slightly different. They use two switched grounds for the high and low beam. So we're going to have to do a couple little tweaks. But that's going to be kind of easy because a while back I changed it around to where I put automotive relays to allow the headlights to be switched independently from the regular electrical system, and that'll make it a lot easier to reconfigure everything, especially with the dimmer switch on the steering column. But in order to upgrade these things, just like with the Elco, well, I haven't done it yet, but we'll have to soon enough, you need housings, 5x7 housings that are direct fit replacements for the sealed beams, and of course LED bulbs. And H4 configuration, it has a specific base and the particular plug that makes them compatible with the old school plugs on these cars. But with that, we got our housings, we got our bulbs, we have to start taking some shit apart. So let's get to that. After a quick look around, come to realize something. The way these headlights are situated in here, they're nestled in here. We're going to have to take the front clip off. Great. Off comes the front clip. Let's get to it. Okay, I actually had a little hiccup with our camera here, but to show you what's going on here, got our front clip loose. I didn't pull it all the way out, but actually it came off enough. Whatever is holding me up in here doesn't matter. I was able to get the headlight bulbs out along with the rings. Got all that shit out. Got it all right here. Old bulbs, rings. Now, of course, because our high beams are only a 2-terminal setup, I'm going to have to add a couple of our H4 terminals right here to the high beam side. And of course, just like on the Elco, the two wires for the low and high beams will be wired together, so both filaments will, well, not filaments because they're LED, but both sides will come on simultaneously when the high beams are activated. So with all this out, you can also see too that this was a pretty shitty setup. There weren't any plugs actually in here. These are just wires, just a batch of wires plugged up. So we're gonna have to put H4 sockets on everything here. But with that, that makes things even better, because now I'm starting off fresh. I'm not actually cutting up anything and repositioning shit. I'm just adding stuff fresh. So our next move is going to be to get our pin out, more or less, our layout for the wires, so we'll know which ones go where, and wire all this shit together and basically put it back together. So stand by. Our high beams are pretty straightforward. It's just a simple connecting of everything. Get a bulb. Stand by. Got an idea. Okay, the idea, obviously, if somebody hadn't figured it out, was just look at the Elco to get the same idea of how the headlights get wired up. And we got to figure it out. So time to put this stuff together. high beam side wired up, just like on the Elco. Two sides wired together. And our hot side right here is on its own line. Same thing on this side. Two grounds wired together, hot on its own. Now, go ahead and get the main side. Okay, got our wiring figured out. As noted, we had to rewire everything because of the H4 configuration. Because the car wiring is hooked up to just our automotive relays, we didn't have to do anything on the inside. We just had to go ahead and run everything from the relays out to our bulbs. And instead of the relays switching 12 volts, the relays are switching grounds. The 12 volt input straight from the battery that used to feed the relays is now feeding the input sides of each of our bulbs, and our grounds on each bulb are going to the relays in order to be switched to a chassis ground. So car wiring didn't have to be touched. Everything from the relay out is all redone. Now, as a side note, had to do a little toggle switch or a rocker switch for our high beam because the steering column switch is busted up, and rather than tearing the column apart and trying to get in there and repair all that trash, I just put a rocker switch in a discrete location that's still easily accessible but not easily visible. So that's neither here or there. Everything in the car is straight. Go ahead and aim this camera at our bulbs so we can turn this shit on for demonstration purposes. Got our two bulbs right there, high beam only and low and high beam. Gonna turn the low beam on first. Okay, here's our low beam. You can see one side ain't lit because that's our high beam chip on the LED bulb. Obviously this one is not lit at all. So we got our low beam. Now I'll flick on our high beam. As you can see, everything is on. High beam and low beam is on. Bright as hell. Turn off our high beam, and we're back to our low beam only. So our wiring is correct, neatened up with zip ties. Only thing left now is to duplicate this shit on that side and put our sockets in and get our bulbs in and get all this trash put back together so we can wrap this up. So let's get to it. Let's get this done. Alright, we now have these lights done. Had to run some extra wiring because the old wiring was still set up to coincide with the old layout of grounds and everything. That wouldn't work, so had to run a couple extra wires, but got it done. Got our wires neatened up with wire ties, and we did some preliminary testing, but I'm going to turn them on right now to show that they work. First, we're going to do the low beams. As we can see, got our low beam. These particular LED bulbs, I switched them around. These are the newer ones. Half of the chip lights up for the low beam side. Let me get this situated a little better so you can see it. Now, I'll go ahead and we're going to go turn on the high beam. high beam action. As you can see, everything lit up. And this one here, the entire card lit up. The entire LED chip is lit up for high and low. And our high only is lit up, as is the other side, as demonstrated before. Everything is lit up. So now, with that done, our wiring is true, our lights work. We can start putting everything back together, starting with the housings. Let's get it done. Okay, had to take the front clip off because it's in the way, even more than it was when I was rewiring everything. The reason being is these headlight buckets. If you look at the openings, they are of that size. If we look at the headlight shells here, they're big as hell. I'm going to have to take these buckets off and cut that back end out to open them up enough to accommodate. I'm going to have to be able to accommodate this shit here by cutting that out. So, yeah. Sometimes this is how it goes. Sucks. So, yep. I'm going to have to take off our headlight buckets and get the power tools out. Yay me. Go. Lop off these little ears right here and get enough clearance. Bam. One might say, why not bend them back? I could do that. Let's do a quick test fit. I'm making contact about right here. If I bend this back, it might work, but then I might misshaping the bucket in this area, and same thing right here, which might make this thing go back in awkwardly. So we're not doing that. We're cutting it off. headlight housings back in. Screws are all in, even some added screws. Got them adjusted to the best of my eye's ability. Let's go ahead and turn them on real quick. Let's see how they look again. Walk on around here. Hit this switch. Alright. We've got low beam action right there. Alright. Let's go for high beam. And we've got high beam action. These headlight housings are unique in the sense that there's a focusing lens in the center of each housing that I would have to assume is going to focus the beam a little bit, so we get a more concentrated amount of light in front of the car versus a spread out amount of light or a diffused light. So since we're all good on the lights itself, let's put all this other shit back together and wrap this thing up. Alright, we have got the front clip back on, all around, even added a few bolts, but all in all, this sucker's back on, lined up about as good as it's going to be lined up, and everything works. We have light, as you can see, we have LED light. So, yep, the old Monte is brought up to the 21st century with LED headlights. So now, this car is that much closer to hitting the road. So, till the next time, we're all done with this thing. It's starting to get a little late. Gonna clean up, get ready to head back inside for the evening. So, hit that like button, subscribe if you hadn't already. Drop a comment, hit the notification so you can see more of us, more of these old cars, and our antics with these old cars. Until the next time, I will catch you later.